I'm very happy to be here with you guys today, and also happy that after the hike on Camelback that I'm able to walk without obvious pain or distress. So happy to join you guys. I have a little bit of a different perspective than Yum, obviously, because we're coming from a small brand and we didn't have a lot of internal experience in this area when we started this journey. So I'm just going to kind of lay out for you what we did, what we learned, what worked for us, what didn't. I think it's relevant in particular for those brands that are smaller, because this is one space where if you do it right, the difference in playing field between like advertising penetration and things like that is much less. We can't be as good as a Starbucks app, but we can be pretty good and be more competitive with our larger scale QSR competitors with this. So to start with, I can't assume that all of you guys even know who Fazoli's is, of course. We are a premium quick service restaurant, Italian concept. We were founded in Lexington 32 years ago this September. We have about 220 locations, both company and franchise, and we're in 28 states. So if you do the math on that, with 220 restaurants, we don't have a lot of penetration in any market. So traditional advertising, we have a presence in markets, but it's very limited in terms of our budgets. We serve primarily pasta, also sandwiches, pizza, and our signature item is our garlic breadsticks that are unlimited when you dine in, which is kind of our most craveable and signature product. So that's who Fazoli's is. I'm just going to kind of, like I said, walk through our journey, kind of what we did, the different steps we took, starting with kind of the foundation, getting started, getting a little bit smarter about what we were doing, and then just this past fall, we actually relaunched our mobile app and ordering platform, and kind of how all that went for us as well. So first things first, the foundation for this is really, in our case, was about buy-in. And that really started with our leadership. This is something that our CEO really believed was important for us to be present in the space, to create relationships with our customers at a deeper level. And he made the decision and reinforced it throughout all of the franchise community that this wasn't an option, that this was a requirement for the brand. That was really important. To Ashley's comments around a franchise system, I would still be trying to talk some people into doing this 2 years in if it wasn't clearly laid out that this was part of the expectation as a brand standard. And the thing about franchisees is it's probably like any other program. We have a part of the franchise community that's totally bought in, gets it, wants to keep growing it and driving it, and part of it that still really doesn't understand why we're even doing it. So that is going to kind of be the reality. So one key really is find those people who are your supporters and help them, because franchisees listen to other franchisees a lot easier than they listen to us, on these topics. The second foundation obviously has to do with technology. I just really wanted to cry yesterday when Liz was talking about not having a system-wide POS program, because I can't imagine what that's like. But we were kind of close to it before we started this program. We put in 3 years ago a system-wide POS system. We actually used Brink. And that was really kind of the foundation to be able to layer these other things on top of it, like a mobile app and an online and mobile ordering platform. So kind of getting those two things in place, the common POS, an online and mobile ordering engine. The next thing for us was around picking a good partner for the app. We're not a large enough organization to be able to build it on our own, given the time and money that would take. And the other thing, of course, is for a smaller organization, once you build it, it's yours. You have to maintain it. So we did an RFP, talked with 4 different partners, and ended up deciding to go with Punch, partly because of their prevalence in the industry. They were probably the largest provider across different QSRs that we talked to. And they already had a lot of the integration in place with our existing partners, with Brink, our POS, and also at the time we were working with Monkey Media on the online and mobile ordering. So they had existing relationships in place. So it wasn't a eons long process where you're at the mercy of their technological people being able to work together and solve problems. they could make that happen in a pretty short order and without a lot of expense. But even then, I think one of the important things is, if you haven't done this yet, is to expect speed bumps. That's everything from our expertise in setting up coupons the right way so they work for the restaurants and don't cause problems there. That's even things like when Brink did a system-wide update, a software update at one point in time, a little over a year ago, that caused coupons not to work in our system and redemptions not to work in our system. And so we had all of this volume of complaints and inquiries from our consumers about problems in using the app after that happened. And it really kind of does require a mini sort of help desk. You're going to get a lot of consumers reaching out to say they have a question or something didn't work, and they have an issue to be resolved. So we kind of didn't really expect that necessarily going in, that we were going to have to kind of have someone dedicate a good part of their time just to make sure that these customers were followed up with so we can continue this relationship with them. And then, just do it, because we didn't have a lot of internal expertise on this. But using our own, obviously, experiences with consumers, with other brands who have done this well, and using our resources, really decided to get started with a pretty aggressive acquisition offer. Our baked spaghetti is one of our more popular entrees, and so we gave away a free baked spaghetti with drink purchase for app downloads when we launched the app. And that's a primary way that we communicated it, obviously, because we wanted to share that benefit. And then the other part, obviously, of that is around building awareness. So using kind of all of the tools that you have. So this is just a list of some of the things that we did, and some of the things that I've highlighted there are those things that were particularly important to us. Another thing that Ashley had mentioned is the importance of getting buy-in from your managers and crew, your own internal team. So things like incentives were really valuable to us. And for example, the difference this can kind of make from early on, our highest performing company restaurant and participation rate was in Nicholasville, Kentucky, which is a little town just south of Lexington. And it's why would Nicholasville be a hotbed of mobile app participation? And it all had to do with the general manager at that restaurant, who knew a lot of our regular guests and who would talk to them when they came in and ask if they had the app and tell them about the benefits they could get from using it because they were regular guests. And she would even be just give me your phone, I'll do it for you. Because we have, our customer base can be a little bit older in a lot of cases. Some of these people maybe aren't as familiar or comfortable with technology. So just helping them kind of get past that really made a difference. So things like incentives that can really drive engagement at the restaurant level are important. And on the external communication side, another thing that we did that was a small thing but really kind of helped us in a lot of ways was creating kind of a video, like an instructional video, really brief, animated video just to explain how it worked. That's something that we could share with guests, share in social and things like that, that kind of answered a lot of the questions that we were getting in our unexpected marketing help desk we had to create for this. And that was something that was an effective tool for us. And we actually did have some good success with Google and Facebook ads. I know Ryan was talking about that, something that didn't work as well for them, but we were able to get downloads around the $2 range. So that's something that was an effective tool for us, especially early on, to kind of get some traction and get franchise participation, because we can do that on behalf of the entire system. And then we really just, began to engage those users with offers. So kind of the two primary strategies we started out with were to build awareness and trial of our LTOs. Obviously, that's an easy kind of communication function for this. The other thing was integrating it with our social communications and those other things around national days, like National Meatball Day, buy one, get one spaghetti and meatballs, that kind of thing. And we continue to get really good results on all of those silly kind of national days that happen that people engage with. So those were kind of the two primary things we did. We found some kind of other benefits along the way. Some have to do with just particular business needs. Like if we're rolling over a particularly strong period from the prior year, you can add communications and activity in the app to try to just give another kind of jump that is easy to do, doesn't cost you any more incrementally like external advertising does. And other things just like product inventory. We do LTO desserts as part of our promotional calendar. And if we were running along on a cheesecake in one DC, for example, we could do $1 off, BOGO cheesecake, something like that for the restaurant service out of that DC to help run through inventory. So we're not just throwing product away at the end, we're giving a guest, you know, an unexpected kind of surprise and delight on those items. So little things like that that we didn't really kind of think about in going into this, it added some benefits there as well. Then kind of for us, the next step was, once we'd built a decent kind of database size, was to add some precision to it. So at the end of last year, these aren't Burger King or Yum kind of numbers, but our total CRM program was over 900,000 users with almost 600,000 in our loyalty program. So we had about 2,000 eFamily users per restaurant, about 2,700 loyalty users per restaurant. And the most important thing that we've been also talking to franchisees about, because we still had restaurants that had like sign-up boxes for our eFamily email club in the restaurants where people filled out a form and put it in, and they sent it in, and people entered addresses into eFamily. It's like, this is not where our focus is. Our focus is on growing the loyalty program. We have so many more benefits from that in terms of being able to drive behavior and get data around these customers and what they're doing that we can't get from eFamily. So we've been able to really focus our franchise community on building loyalty and not so much on eFamily, because it hasn't been as effective for us as a way to communicate and engage with our guests and really get the data to understand what's happening from it. So we started just about a year ago, after we'd had a little over a year in the company restaurants doing some segmentation. And we started just with basic recency and frequency. So taking our total database of guests, dividing them into 4 groups based on recency and frequency. And then that was primarily driven by us, meaning the benefit for that was for us. This wasn't really, in full transparency, about giving the customer more or being more personalized. It was about managing discounts. Because as we got into the program with an aggressive offer and a pretty, like, 50 points is $5, a points for dollars program, it was a pretty generous program. So we wanted to really manage the discounts and give a higher incentive to those consumers who had the potential to become more loyal guests, and give lower discounts both to those lost customers that were kind of our worst customers, and also to those active champions that are our best customers, because they don't need as great a discount to be able to get a visit. So this was really around keeping our financial health and franchise engagement and involvement in the program in mind to segment this way. And then based on the results from that, continue to refine that. You know, so we took those 4 segments, divided them into 6 segments instead, basically taking kind of both that top and bottom group of customers and dividing them down more, because they responded differently to the different offers that we gave once we started the segmentation program. So, you know, to the kind of data monster that Liz mentioned yesterday, like, there's so much information here, there's so many ways you can do it. This is how we kind of started both to try to get the loyalty engagement from guests where we saw that potential, and also to manage our discounts for those customers who don't need as great as an incentive from us to come. The other thing that we did was creating some segments based on other behaviors besides recency and frequency, kind of in this step 2. Just some examples of those, like after church is a big thing for us, Sunday afternoons. So targeting those users with some relevant offers for that occasion. Kids meals and families are another one. We have pretty high incidence of kids meals compared to other QSR concepts where I've worked. I think because, you know, every kid likes pasta is probably why. So, so doing some things around families. Big spenders, not catering so much, but just like large families. And also another big part of our behavior in the loyalty program are solo lunch diners. Like, people are coming in for the lunch special, kind of on their own, getting a quick meal, doing some specific targeting and communication with them. The key to doing this right for us was having the right resources. In our case, we had a lot of help from our agency. We work with Capecchio out of Louisville into some of the initial segmentation to kind of start to attack the data and figure out different ways we can look at it and how to analyze it and move with greater precision, because we kind of had this tool that had a lot of precision and we're using it as a pretty blunt instrument. So they were a big help in that. The other thing is, Punch really rely on your provider as well. You're paying them and they'll give you a lot of insights and benchmarks and other things that you're already paying for in the fees that you're paying for the restaurants to be part of the program. And so that's one of the things that we learned, to be honest. We kind of initially relied more on the agency, now kind of rely more on Punch because I don't have to pay extra for that work, out of our marketing budgets. And they have a lot of expertise in this area because of the customer base they work with in QSR as well. And then the other thing is, internal, really dedicating resources to it. We have a digital marketing manager who this is pretty much 90% of his job. So it really does take a lot of, to do it right and to do it well. And we're still learning and refining and growing. You really have to have internal resources dedicated to this to be able to manage that. Another thing that Ashley kind of touched on as well is around having the customer mind, just recognizing those most loyal users. We don't really do this so much with things like free food, but we've done just a couple of things. One example is like sending out a letter to say thanks for being one of our most loyal guests, and we sent Fazoli socks to for the company restaurants, the top 3 loyalty users in each of the restaurants. So just things like that just kind of say, we really value you. You're important to us. So this is a picture of a guy from Huber Heights, Ohio, showing off his socks to the management crew there. And then, lastly, it's never ending, keep refining. As I mentioned last fall, we relaunched our mobile app and loyalty program. We had 2 primary objectives in this. The first one was to enhance the mobile ordering experience. And Ashley had talked about a frictionless experience. We were really far from that. Our both mobile and online ordering experience was just really clunky, a lot of clicks to order. There wasn't reorder functionality if you had a favorite and things that you like to order on a regular basis. Our upselling was not really in the right place and not really effective. And then we were giving different offers through the mobile app to people, and they couldn't redeem them on a mobile order. That's not very smart. So we changed from Monkey Media to Olo is what we needed to do to be able to unlock this part of it. Because their solution allowed us to go to native ordering on Punch's platform where we didn't have all of the restrictions of another vendor's platform. So that was the main thing. The second thing was around reducing discounting. It wasn't crazy numbers, but we were too generous. I don't know that I would do it differently, to be honest, in hindsight, because I think being aggressive with the offer to acquire people and to get them to see rewards and meaningful rewards early, I think was important for us to build the database that we have. But over time, as we refined, we knew we needed to kind of relook at that. So we changed the acquisition offer, so it's no longer free entree, it's a snack and shareable item. And then we also just reformed the rewards platform structure, where we had a points for dollars before. Now we had a points for products. So that allows us to reduce the total earned rewards discount from around 10% to more like 7 to 7.5%. It also allows us to change it over time in the future without it being as obvious. Because when it's 50 points is $5, you can't kind of make it 50 points is now $4 without it being really obvious, the changes that you've made. One of the keys to doing that was just really trying to make sure as much as possible that those guests who were using the app knew that these changes were coming. So we did a whole series of communications with them just to let them know, hey, coming out later this month, coming on November 22nd, here's what the new program looks like. Not that there still aren't going to be people that don't like it, because there is a little bit less in it for them, obviously in terms of earned rewards discounts, but also just any change is disruptive to some people. So we did get some pushback early on, and what we found is in a pretty short period of time, kind of those calls and those kind of complaints went away, both at the restaurant level and what we kind of got coming into our office. And in our initial results, it's achieving the goals that we set out for it. So now more than 7% of our loyalty visits are coming from online and mobile ordering, where previously that was less than 2%, because number one, it was just a bad experience, and number two, because of that, we weren't promoting it very much. And then secondly, our loyalty guest spend is increasing, and our discount rate has seen a decline. Prior to the change, our discount rate on loyalty transactions was way higher than benchmarks. We were looking at something like 18%. After the change, we're at about 11.5%, pretty much right on with the fast casual benchmark and just a little higher than QSR, which kind of feels right given our space in the industry. And a lot of this was driven primarily by that change and the earned rewards discounts by going to this points for products kind of structure. And the good news is we've seen participation rate grow in January. So we made the change, and we've been able to grow. We're actually above the QSR and fast casual benchmark of 10% in the company restaurants where we've had the program in longer and frankly have just embraced it more, as a holistically as a company versus our franchise system. Our franchise system is growing, but there's still some opportunity for us there to get them on board and embracing this more as well. And then lastly, again, refine, repeat, keep it going. So we just work with Punch and ourselves internally every year to kind of set goals on what it is we're trying to achieve. So we're trying to grow average visits for this year. Our primary tactic there is using frequency challenges, which Starbucks is a prime example of someone who does that with great success. Continuing to grow our spend from loyalty guests. Here, one of our primary tactics is really promoting online ordering because what we found is a significantly higher check in our online orders versus in restaurant. And then continuing to grow participation rate. We're at the benchmark, but our goal to be as a system for this year is at 15%. Primarily how we're focusing on that, in addition to continuing to acquire some new users to the program, but it's also to really do a better job onboarding those people. So communication and offers to get them from download to first visit, from first visit to second visit, from second visit to third visit. So trying to kind of compress that time period and get that relationship and those habits set early on so we've earned the space on their phone so they'll keep the app and keep using it and keep giving their visits to Fazoli's. So that's all I've got. Thank you so much.
Jodie, thank you. We have time for questions. Jodie?
I'm also doing one of the round tables, so anyone who has other questions.
I have a couple of appy questions.
Yes.
So in communicating to your app users and your app downloaders, are you using push? Are you using geofencing? What are you finding out about what sort of cadence, what sort of channels are working best to get people to get these offers in front of people who are already downloaded the app?
Yeah, we use a lot of push notifications. We use email too, but we try to use that a little more sparingly. Again, we don't want to inundate people with too much. So we do have it targeted down to the restaurant level in terms of participation. So basically, for our franchise system, we give them options on what they want to participate in for each promotional window that we have. So we'll have, here's the calendar of activities that support our LTOs for this window. Here's our calendar of national days and other things that we're communicating on social. And here are kind of our basic segmentation frequency kind of programs, and they can opt in or out of that at the restaurant level, and that's based on people who have chosen that restaurant as their favorite. So it's not exactly geo-targeted because sometimes people might visit close to where they work versus where they live. So we target that on geography based on what they've selected as their favorite location.
Are you finding that these other channels like social and email, either one or together, work especially well at reminding people they actually have your app?
They do, and like I said, we actually have had some success with Facebook and Google advertising on that. We actually kind of backed it off before we did all of the changes to the app, since we knew changes were coming soon, so we're just kind of now ramping that back up again.
And what sorts of in-app behaviors do you are you able to see that are telling you the most about where somebody is in their depth of loyalty, whether they're about to delete an app? What sort of data are you actually getting from app behaviors themselves that are most value to you?
Yeah, I mean, we still look at recency and frequency a lot because that is still an indicator of where people are and when people are sort of, we could be on the verge of losing them, right? You know, so those are still the things that we're using to really try to activate and try to keep the relationship fresh and stay top of mind with that group.
And Jodie, we'll talk to you more in the roundtable.